get to the heart of the matter, which is to figure out, let's get a deal done. Maybe we can get a deal done right here. I don't see why not. So joining us now is House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Ms. Speaker, it's always great to see you or hear you.
Good morning, Jim. Thank you for the opportunity to have a conversation at this very, very serious time. Appreciate all the comments I've heard on your show this morning about the seriousness of it and the urgency to get something done.
Will we, Madam Speaker? Can we get something done today? I know you as a person, as a practical individual. I know that Secretary Mnuchin is a practical individual. I believe that Senator McConnell can help. Is there any chance that by the end of the day, even though I know that we have disparate bills, that we can just come together in an unusual showing of nonpartisanship, because we know that there are probably about 150 million working people right now who are watching and listening to you and want to know whether they have a job on Friday.
I'm glad you have such a large audience. I think there is real optimism that we could get something done in the next few hours. The Senate bill, the Senate Democrats have done a great job of taking the bill from a place was trickled down for workers. It was about corporate America. We're about the workers, because this is where the economy thrives, where people have confidence in having an income, having a paycheck, and then willing to spend. As in a consumer economy, we believe that this is not only good for the workers, the right thing for the country, but also good for the economy. So the question is, who has the leverage? When they put out their bill, it was all corporate America. With all due respect, that corporate America is the creator of jobs, but nonetheless, unless we were looking out for the workers, that we were never going to have a solution. And that if there was money given to large entities, that they would not have buybacks, bonuses, dividends, CEO pay, that kind of thing. But putting that aside, even that the workers' rights would be respected within that use of that money. We've made big progress in that regard. In terms of the oversight of the slush fund, the $500 billion for the Secretary, I'm very happy that it appears the Senate is taking the House language of oversight, which was we had the language in common that we would have an inspector general strictly to have oversight over that money, A, and B, we would have a congressional panel appointed by us of 5 people, constrained, but nonetheless to have oversight over that. It's similar to what we have done in the past, but that was major, shall we say, overarching concern.
Right. I have a pledge I'm looking at from Secretary Mnuchin saying that we have agreement on that, which is really important. I know you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's a big change. So, there's some other things that are of concern, but I appreciate your saying test, test, test. We produced 2 bills already in a very strong bipartisan way. The first one, giving the money for research, for vaccines, for therapies, and this or that. The next one, I did something I didn't like to do, but to give immunity for liability to the mask producers so that they would sell the masks. They weren't going to sell it unless they had immunity. It's not something I like to do, but weighing the equities, it was necessary to do. So we did that, and that's in the second bill, and that was why that was important to get that out. Among other things, it was going to unleash the masks. Mm-hmm. Testing, testing, testing. You can't say it enough, but you have to have the right test. In terms of some of the other things in the bill that had improved, state and local, we wanted a strong infusion of resources for state and local governments because they are taking a big bite of this wormy apple. We have some concerns still about the president not fully embracing the Defense Production Act to go so far into getting more of what we need out there. And again, there's some issues that I don't think are deal breakers, but are of concern to my members. We want OSHA language for better protection for our workers. Family and medical leave is a big issue for our families to be expanded. So that's just to give you some of the in particular issues. But overarchingly, I think we're getting to a good place if they stay there. See, the problem
right.
move. But I'm optimistic. Chuck Schumer and the House Democrats use their leverage to a great extent to make this a much more worker-oriented initiative.
Well, Speaker Pelosi, one of the things that I like, you and I have known each other for a bit, and we talk to each other about policy, but we also talk about business. And I just want to give you a George Bailey look at things. Sometimes a fictional character tells more about fact than anything else. I'm talking about It's a Wonderful Life. When I look in my crystal ball of what would happen without George Bailey, meaning in this case without some intervention of the government, here's what the world will look like. There will be a few companies. There'll be Walmart, there'll be Amazon, there'll be Target, there'll be Costco, and there'll be Home Depot. And then there'll be 50 million people who are unemployed. If you don't get this done, that's the world. There'll be J.P. Morgan, there'll be Bank of America, and there'll be Wells Fargo and maybe Citi. We run a risk right now that that's all the companies, and they're the only ones that have the credit to do it. We can't have that happen, Madam Speaker. That would be the disaster for America that you and I both think is just unthinkable. Is there any give? Do you have you need something from Mnuchin, and what are you willing to give in return so that we get this done today and we do not have that look of what this country will be if we don't get agreement?
Well, we have to get agreement, and that's why you have to weigh the equities when you're I didn't want to do immunity from liability, but I knew I had to do that to do the masks, so we can get the masks out. So, again, it's legislating. You don't all get everything you want. That's called compromise, and that's important. Right. And in weighing the equity of getting those checks, as you all were talking about, getting those checks into the hands of workers and consumers as soon as possible. So when we look at a solution, it's does this work as fast as, what works the fastest and the best way? I do believe, though, that people should put this in perspective. In the past 3 weeks, we have put forth 3 bills. The first bill is $8.3 billion for research and this or that. Test. The next bill addressing many major concerns to the tune of billions of dollars. And this bill will be $1 trillion bill, which nobody even saw until Saturday. So it's not, while we all appreciate the urgency, it's a big responsibility to do it right and for the where we can find shared values to do that. You talked about that story. I'll tell you what was what delivered the message to me very clearly. I said on Sunday when we met with Mr. Secretary Mnuchin, McConnell, Chuck Schumer, and Kevin McCarthy, I said, it's Sunday morning. Let me just begin with a prayer of Pope Francis. He offered this prayer to the world. He said, enlighten those responsibilities for the common good so they might know how to care for those entrusted to their responsibility. And to that response, Mnuchin said, you quoted the Pope, I'll quote the markets. And I just want to emphasize that what the word that His Holiness used was responsibility. That's the word that we have to be responsible for workers, responsible for our children who are not in school, responsible for our seniors who may be fragile, responsible for kids with student loans. The list goes on and on. We have to be responsible. But in a way, in a bill that is very particular to this virus.
Right.
Making general policy. This is about how we attack this policy. So when we've had some disagreements when they introduce things that are not, we're all trying to stay with that regimen, are not particular to this challenge. So right. I'm optimistic. I think that everybody knows the overarching view is we have to get this done. A. B, I have 3 options. Mm-hmm. We can come to a conclusion that it sticks, not with you and then they change it. That we come to an agreement where there's all compromise. A, B, and then we have a unanimous consent, and this could move quickly. If we don't have unanimous consent, my 2 options with my members is to call them back to vote to amend this bill, or to pass our own bill and then go to conference with them. The easiest way to do it is for us to put aside some of our concerns for another day and get this done. But we can't. You can support a bill because if it doesn't do enough that you want to do, but that's what you can get. But if it has poison pills in it, then and they know certain things are poison pills, and then they don't want unanimous consent. They just want an ideological statement.
Right, but just to defend Secretary Mnuchin for a second, I did not mean that. I don't think he meant to disparage the Supreme Pontiff by mentioning money. I think he, like all of us, are just worried about the worker. We could say where the money comes from the worker could be from the corporation. I know that's an anathema to you, but at the same time, corporations do pay people. What I'm concerned about is equity.
Anathema to me. I said corporations are the source of jobs.
No, I know. I just didn't want it. I just thought it was difficult. We don't want to. No name calling about Secretary Mnuchin. We know he's working pretty hard too. But I do worry about equity in the sense that
values.
Okay.
Value is trickled down.
Right.
But we're saying bubble up. We have to find a place to meet.
Well, is it possible? What I think that we don't want to see, that happened in 2007 to 2009, is that the very rich, whether it be Warren Buffett, whether it be the bankers, some of the CEOs, they came out ahead in part because who paid for the trillions that were involved then? It was the American worker. How come the American worker can't participate with the companies that are going to be, yes, use your term, bailed out, maybe some equity with them? Because I think that we're all kind of tired of, at the end of this, you know what, who got richer? The people who were already rich. How do we change that dynamic with the battle for the ages coming, I think?
Well, you pose a good challenge, and I don't know that it can be done in this bill. But I do think that there is an opportunity, and I see everything as an opportunity, to say how we can limit our exposure as we go in the future by having more participation of all of the stakeholders. It used to be more that way until it just became a bottom line economy in terms of the markets. I'm a big believer in the markets. I've been watching the markets since I was a teenager, and that's a long time ago.
I know. You're very focused on the markets.
On that, I'm just saying, if you want the best way, I think, for our economy to succeed is for everybody to succeed, including the consumers, who are the lifeblood of it. And that's why we want to get money into the hands of these workers as soon as possible.
Right, but we don't want to disenfranchise the stockholders. We have a lot of people who listen. It's 401k money. It's IRA money. We certainly don't want to make it so that the seniors have no savings. Yes, health is more important than money, but I listen to the people who call into our show and focus on our network, and I say these people have to have a voice, too. We don't want to disenfranchise the small shareholder who has tried so hard to be able to save money and might see that money go down the drain while, once again, the CEOs get richer.
Well, God bless you for that thought, and that's a macro discussion that our country has, and maybe that will be the grist of the conversation in the next election. But for today, trying to get this bill passed, I think it's really important to note that, again, the difference we had was they were starting with, a corporate America, and I'm sure corporate America is friendly to workers. It's not an unfriendly thing. It's just saying there has to be more equity. Now, what I think the best thing that we could do so that we can see a light at the end of the tunnel is find a cure. And that requires what we put in billions of dollars for research. I think we need a major scientific intervention right now as to what does work and doesn't work about stopping the spread of this. You talked earlier about what's worked here and there in terms of keeping people in and testing. I think you have to do both. There's been a delay in the testing. No use going into what was. We have to talk about as we go forward. And as we go forward, I think it has to be so much more science-based, because we can either see a light at the end of the tunnel of this because our scientific basis for staying home and this or that is working, or if we just forget that, at that light of the tunnel can be the proverbial train coming at us. So that, I think, the country has to make that decision. And it's not a question of let old sick people die so the markets can thrive. I hear that in some of the conversation. It's about how we address this in a scientific way and not notion-mongering, but evidence-based decision-making about it. But we all have the same thing. Nobody roots against the stock market. Everybody wants it to thrive.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's talk about you are a great head counter and a tactician, not just someone who thinks strategically. Can we get this bill through the fiscal hawks in the House? Can we get something today, a pledge from both sides saying, American people, we are not going to let you down. We've got a deal. I know devil in the details. That is a metaphor that I'm kind of sick of. Just kind of a commitment that you, Secretary Mnuchin, that this is going to be done by the end of the day and that we're just not going to let you down. And we've got to work on the health care side. We got to get the testing done. We cannot have a situation where testing is something that we think is going to happen. And then we go to the high school drive-through and it turns out we don't know whether we're better for 2 days. But boy, will we ever feel more confident knowing that you've got your people lined up, Secretary Mnuchin has his people lined up, and we get a deal done. And if there are other things that need to be done later, even a second bill, the bill to be able to put money in the workers' pockets, 150 million people watching us now in one form or another, Ms. Speaker, can't we get a deal that says to them, the 150 million workers, you have nothing to fear from Washington. You're going to get your money. You're going to be able to keep your job for at least 30 days while we finish this, and we've done this for you. Can we say that right now?
We can say it when we have a deal, and that could be imminent in a number of hours. I can say that we're all receptive to getting something done. We all know that everybody doesn't write their own bill, that it's a series of compromises, and that we think the bill has moved sufficiently to the side of workers with the respect. We actually are talking to the employers about what they think the traffic will bear and the rest. So this isn't a conversation with workers and not with the airlines or other industry, right. Hospitality, parking, you name it. You go to restaurants, you go down the list, and trying to be discreetly trying to address their problem. So it is not a one-sided conversation on our part. However, things like a $500 billion slush fund was really insulting.
I understood, and I think that I think the Secretary has come to that agreement with you and has some sort of a transparency faction. Get the Inspector General, get an oversight panel. But I want to leave you with this sense. One, would you put business to the test, large business, to say you should join the pledge of Kevin Johnson from Starbucks and keep your employees on? And then in return, can you give us a pledge that you will make some compromise, Secretary Mnuchin make some compromise, and the American people, the 150 million workers know you will be protected by our government. You will be. Promote the general welfare. The general welfare will be promoted by the end of the day.
Well, I think that's very possible. But until they have a deal, I can't announce a deal. But I can say that everyone appreciates the gravity of the situation, at least in Congress, the gravity of the situation, the need, that timing is everything. But that, again, this is a multifaceted approach that we have to take it with all of this and addressing the needs of the workers. It's desperate. I don't have to explain to you how desperate it is in families and the rest. But they're faith-based organizations, they're nonprofits, they're all kinds of community activists who are trying to meet the needs of people. Last night I thought we were at a good place, and then all of a sudden they said we're not doing any food stamps. We're not doing that.
Right.
They not do that. People are hungry. They don't have food. Now more than ever we need some of those kinds of initiatives. And as I say, a formula that is specific to the COVID-19.
Right.
Not making policy for the general. COVID-19. We want more money for elections so that there can be more absentee ballots and vote by mail and the rest of that. Not forever, just for this period of time. So whether we get those or not, we'll see. But again, we have in all three of this will be the third bill. And the first two bills kicked the can down the road where we couldn't come to agreement and said, we'll do it next. But they don't always do it next, like they didn't do medical leave, they didn't OSHA to protect our workers and that. So is that something we can absorb in order to go forward? It just depends on the balance. I think we're on a good track. I think the Senate Democrats have moved the bill to a place, as I say, where the leverage is more fairly distributed between employers and employers and workers. And that, my goal always has been to bring this bill to the floor under unanimous consent, where we're all in agreement.
Okay, Madam Speaker, I know that the 150 million people are hoping that you guys have meetings of minds. Obviously, there's some issues. I know you don't think they're tangential. You think they're not tangential, but the 150 million people want a deal done, and I hope you folks can agree to something. And we look forward to something with optimism. Thank you so much, Speaker Pelosi, for joining us.
Well, I think that's well-founded. Thank you, Jim.
Good to talk to you. Thank you.